Good evening, everyone. Would you please join us in a salute to the flag?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2017 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2016, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Mrs. Adams? Here. Mrs. Larrier? Here. Mr. Lembrick?
Here. Good night, Cece.
Mr. McGehee?
Here.
Mayor DeLuca?
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7 provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas desire this governing body to comply with the provision of this act, same time it conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee, Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations by the public in the governing body, except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to observations of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings. So moved. Mrs. Adams? Yes. Mrs. Larrier? Yes. Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 7th, 2017 meeting of the Maplewood Township Committee. We have a couple of fun things to do tonight. One is to appoint our new Seniors Advisory Committee. We have a group of folks here. Thank you for coming. Before that, we're going to have a proclamation read by Mrs. Larrier for Black History Month. After we appoint the Seniors Advisory Committee, we're going to open the floor for public comment. Then we'll have our monthly Board of Health meeting. We have one ordinance on final passage that deals with heating requirements, the level of heat that you need to have in a housing unit. Then we have 4 discussion items. One is to talk about amending the table of organization in the Maplewood Police Department to increase the department by 1 captain and 1 officer. We're going to just talk about the first annual chili cook-off, the resolution for the Affordable Care Act, and then a report on leaf blowers. We then have a number of resolutions that we'll be considering on the consent agenda, including applying for a municipal alliance grant, appointing our auditors for 2017, approving a contract with our police dispatchers, our other contracts for our 911 communication system, another grant application for our transportation program of doing Parker Avenue, contract to buy tires, auto parts, road salt, automobile and diesel fuel. We'll approve bills and claims, accept bids for food pipe replacement at the police and court building, authorizing the cancellation of unredeemed checks, extending negotiations with Charles Larkin for the redevelopment block 3105 Lot 10 in redevelopment area 1. We're going to authorize bids for a air conditioning contract, severance liabilities for retiring employees. We have 3 minutes, January 1st, 3rd, and 17th that we'll approve, and closed minutes of January 17th. Then we'll have another public comment session. We'll have administrative reports, and then we will adjourn. Before we do the proclamation, I just would like to make a couple of comments about the fire on Saturday morning. There was a fire at the Avalon Bay apartment complex on the corner of Boynton Avenue and Springfield Avenue. The rear portions, there are 2 buildings, Building 2 and Building 3, in the rear part of the site were on fire and burnt down to the ground. These were construction sites. These were not complete. The owner of the property, Avalon Bay, has come in today and has taken out a demolition permit and has informed us that they are planning to rebuild the units that were lost in the fire. We had a meeting this morning of our engineering, building officials, fire officials, legal officials, development officials, and we are going to insist that if they do build, and we want them to build because this is an important part of our redevelopment effort for the eastern portion of Springfield Avenue, that we will require a higher level of fire safety plan, and we will be negotiating with them on the means and methods in which they can do the construction and utilize any heaters that they might need to use. That we will also, in the interim, the township will hire a structural engineer that Avalon will pay for, and the structural engineer will work with us to assure us that any plans that they have to utilize what is remaining, the parking garage and the other buildings, Building 1, which has about 130 apartments, that they are structurally sound and free from any issues related to mold or water damage. So that's dealing with Avalon Bay. We're going to move forward with them. I would assume that the demolition and cleanup will probably take place the rest of February, and we should see some building out there beginning in March. The other thing is that we have 3 other major developers in town: the former post office, the site on Burnett next to the DeHart Center, and the site on Boynton and Tuscan where the church was. We'll be meeting with each of those developers to better understand any plans that they might have to use gas-powered heaters. I've spoken to all 3. I think 2 are clear that they're not going to use one, not any gas-powered heaters. There may be one that does, and we will work with them on ensuring maximum fire protection. So just wanted to let people know that we are on it. We will be negotiating with Avalon to make sure that they meet our standards. I'll say it again because it's important that this was a construction site accident. This wasn't where no one was living there on the site. There were approximately 4 leases that were signed. People were going to move in there in March. That's not going to happen now. There's no timetables when anyone will move in there, but it'll be months before that happens. So, but we are working with them. The Essex County prosecutor has not determined yet, or has not released any information as to the cause of the fire. There's speculation, but until the prosecutor issues its report, we're not able to comment on it. But we are moving forward, nevertheless, to make sure that nothing like this would ever happen again.
I think it bears also mentioning that even before this happened and before they started building, they had agreed to an increased standard of fire safety standards.
Yes.
So, and that those were not in place because it was still under construction. Had it been in place, as it is in the part that's fully built, I think we may have had a different outcome.
Okay, so let's move on with the proclamation on Black History Month. Mrs. Larrier? You can. Wherever you like.
Right here. Good evening. Whereas nationally, February has been designated as the month to highlight contributions of African Americans, and whereas there have been millions of African Americans who worked, fought, and sacrificed to create a better America, and whereas African Americans for centuries have made significant contributions in fields such as business, education, politics, athletics, science, nutrition, medicine, and the arts. And whereas African American leaders have played a significant role in altering the course of history through marching, testifying, and teaching, and whereas among the roster of world-class achievers are those who have served as human rights pioneers, such as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Frederick Douglass, a former slave and abolitionist, educators, Mary McLeod Bethune, and Booker T. Washington, businesswoman Sarah Madam C.J. Walker, inspiring artists such as Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday, and Paul Robeson, literary scholars Langston Hughes and James Baldwin, a hero in the field of law and jurisprudence, Thurgood Marshall, as well as the first African-American honored on a U.S. postal stamp, Harriet Tubman, a leader in the Underground Railroad. And I would also add the first African-American.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas it is important to the survival of this country that we recognize and celebrate the achievements of all those who have improved and enriched our lives. And whereas February is designated as Black History Month in the Township of Maplewood and throughout the country, now, therefore, be it resolved that Victor DeLuca, Mayor of the Township of Maplewood, on behalf of we, the Township Committee, does hereby proclaim the month of February 2017 as Black History Month. That is our Black History Month.
We will do that. I might add that there's a number of Black History Month events happening in town at the library on Springfield Avenue, at 1978 Art Center on Springfield Avenue. So please come out during Black History Month to one of those events. Mrs. Larry, I'm going to ask you to be up again in introducing our recommendations for the Senior Advisory Committee and calling them up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. When I call your name, if you could come up and take your place by the podium there. Sandra Bartlett, who is being appointed to a 3-year term on the Senior Advisory Committee. Joan Crystal, 3-year term. Irene Dunsavage, 3-year term. Ian Grodman, 1-year term. Kurt Kiley, 3-year term. Gideon Roman, 2-year term. Michael Summersgill, 1 year. Laura Whitmire, 2-year term. Lucy Wilkerson, 2-year term. Robert Wise, 2-year term. And there is 1 vacant space. Mayor, I would recommend that.
Why don't we have them say
Oh, sure.
hello to each other?
Okay.
Hello to us.
If you could tell us well, I've said your name, but why don't you tell us who you are and tell us a little bit about why you'd like to serve on the Senior Advisory Committee.
I'd like to be on this committee because I think that the loss of seniors that we've experienced for as many years as I've been in town, is very serious on a whole number of different fronts. And anything that we can do to try to retain the seniors that we do have, and to try to encourage people who are approaching senior status to remain in town is very important.
And your name?
Your name, say your name, you gotta say your name, Joe.
My name is Joan Crystal.
Great, thank you.
My name's Irene Dunn Savage. I wanted to, first of all, I wanted to thank all of you for making this happen. And I especially want to thank Ian Rodman for moving this along the way. The reasons I want to be on this committee are kind of just so simple. I just want to bring to seniors in town all the services that they really are entitled to, and all of the kinds of services that I know are available on countywide and statewide level, just to make seniors who are at this level in their lives, make their lives easier and more fruitful. And I know that we can do it and make it.
Thank you.
Right now.
Is it working?
Yes.
Hi, Ian Grodman. I'd like to be on this committee because I like doing things to serve the town, and I'm very pleased that this committee has come into existence, and I'm pleased that I can help get it off the ground. Thank you.
Mike Summersgill. I'd just like to continue the work that's being done on the age-friendly initiatives for the two towns, and just make sure that we're bringing voice and consideration to all ages in the town as we think about services and events that we deliver. So hopefully bring that front and center. So thanks for considering me. Appreciate it.
Kurt Kiley. I'd like to thank all the township committee members for organizing this, including interim Ian Grodman for all the hard work he put into getting this ordinance organized and passed. I'm looking forward to working on this committee because I feel that seniors are a very valuable asset to this town. A lot of what happens behind the scenes is contributed by seniors that put a lot of volunteer hours into our town, but it goes unnoticed. And actually, I'd like to retire here at some point and become a senior in Maplewood, and I look in the future, and it might be difficult because of things like taxes and such. Thank you very much for appointing me to this committee.
My name is Gideon Rowan. I would be happy to help serve as committee and make it more vibrant. And you know, in my view, I think senior citizens have a lot to offer, and it's a great asset. There are very few places that have taken place. A lot of issues that we have that we can have the seniors help out in running this town and giving support to all the different things that are going on, all the legislation and all the efforts that we're putting in. We could do a lot of follow-up work. We can do a lot of the things that, you know, we can use enforcement of some of the laws that would sometimes come aboard but never get enforced. So we can be a big part of this institution, of the committee and running this town. So again, I'll be very happy to be part of that group. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Lucy Wilkerson, and the reason I want to be on this committee because I am a senior, and I know I can help assist all the seniors. I come in contact with a lot of seniors, and maybe what doing my exercise classes. And also I belong to the Hilda Neighborhood Association on the board, and I can be a big help in assisting the seniors. Thank you for nominating me.
Thank you. Mrs. Larry, would you like to move the 10?
Mayor, I would move that these 10 people, Sandra, Joan, Irene, Ian, Kurt, Gideon, Michael, Laura, Lucy, Lucille, and Robert, all be appointed to the Senior Advisory Committee with the terms that I mentioned before.
Second.
Call the roll?
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can we get a picture of you?
While we're getting a picture together, I would also like to offer congratulations to Mr. Summersgill on his new addition to his family.
Now even more outnumbered.
Thank you very much. We're now going to open up the floor. If anyone would like to address the Township Committee, we just ask if you'd come up and give us your name and address.
I just wanted to mention that.
You have to say your name and
I'm sorry,
address.
Irene Dunn Savage, 14 St. Lawrence Avenue. I just wanted to mention while we have, or being recorded, on February 18th, the president of the New Jersey chapter of AARP will be doing a meeting for seniors, basically, about what the possibilities of Medicare changes will be in the near future and in the next 4 years, actually. So we're trying to open this up to anyone who wants to be here, and it's being held at the library at 10 o'clock on February 18th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me all right?
Yes. Yes.
My name is Claire Roberts, and I live at 78 Woodside Road. And when I spoke to the Township Committee in late December about the Livingston Animal Shelter, one of my main criticisms was that the shelter had no isolation room or area, as required by the New Jersey state regulations. Livingston's officials responded to my criticisms in an article published by the Village Green on January 4th. In the article, Police Captain Gary Marshutz said that the shelter does not need an isolation room because, quote, sick and contagious animals are brought to the vet, end quote. To my knowledge, this remains the view of the police department, which manages the shelter. So I called Linda Fries, the supervising animal facility inspector for New Jersey in Trenton, to ask her about the issue. Ms. Fries said that taking sick animals to the vet is absolutely not an acceptable alternative, and the lack of an isolation area or room is a major violation, not a minor one. Ms. Fries further said that a shelter without an isolation area or room should never have been licensed. In the same Village Green article of January 4th, Livingston's officials state that the shelter would undergo a number of improvements. However, there's no timetable for when these improvements will be made, and Livingston has a poor history of attending to the shelter in a timely way. By way of example, the local health department did no inspections of the shelter for 8 consecutive years, from 2006 through 2013, even though a yearly inspection is required. In its 2014 inspection, the health department listed the lack of an isolation room as a violation. In the 2015 report, the health department, along with several other repeat violations, again pointed to the lack of an isolation room as a repeat violation. And the lack of an isolation room was again listed as a violation in the 2016 report. So my question is, although I don't expect you to answer it, how many years will it take Livingston to correct a major violation in a shelter. In my view, there is no comparison between St. Hubert's and the Livingston Animal Shelter. I think that no town, including Maplewood, should consider a contract with Livingston when its shelter has been improperly licensed and when the promised improvements have not been completed. So I do ask that the members of the Maplewood Township Committee to please continue our town's arrangement with St. Hubert's for its sheltering. I think it's the right thing to do for our town and for our animals. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Hi, Virginia Camino, 42 Blanchard Road, South Orange. I just wanted to clarify the issue with the isolation room because it's been back and forth with the volunteers in Livingston and with what Linda Fries is staying. I worked with Furry Hearts. I have my own 501c3, and I've done fostering for St. Hubert's and Mount Pleasant. And the reason that the isolation room is there is it is difficult to identify these diseases in kittens or dogs until they're isolated for typically 2 weeks. And the Jack was closed for, or actually quarantined initially for an outbreak of ringworm and not having the animals in a properly ventilated isolation room. So it's not kind of, although it sounds like they're caring over there, you don't wait for the animal to exhibit signs and then take it to the vet. Plus, if you had animals with certain illnesses, like say ringworm, the healing time is 3 to 6 weeks. So is the vet going to keep them that long? But mainly, if a puppy or a pooch from town here goes over there and is next to an infectious dog, and the ACO didn't notice it, that dog could come down with parvo. If it's cats, we're talking about distemper, and distemper wiped out the whole cat population at Paws, and even better shelters occasionally get outbreaks of ringworm and distemper. So just wanted to explain why the isolation room is 2 weeks before, not when they're sick.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman.
Good evening.
Jeanette Page Hawkins, Essex County Liaison. I'm coming forth to tell you about the snow that's coming and that the county has readied itself to assist the township in snow removal. I did send forth a notice earlier today.
Gina, thank you.
Okay.
Scary, 4 to 8 inches.
Quite scary. Is there any other issues? None?
Yeah, we have some issues with the engineer, but we'll talk to you about it. We need some help in, we need to arrange another face-to-face meeting because I think some things are being lost in the communication. So we'll reach out to you and ask you for your help to do that.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name's Lynn Bailey. My husband and I live at 58 Salter Place, and we are both in accord on the issue of St. Hubert's. We really would like to see Maplewood stick with St. Hubert's, which we think is an excellent shelter. The Livingston shelter, I feel, is to be called a shelter is a misnomer. To me, it's more like a pound. It's one room. I've had cats. I have had a cat who was lost. The idea of a lost cat, my tender little lost cat, going into a one-room shelter with dogs is, that's a very troubling possibility. And I think that St. Hubert's, which really has a good system in place is the way to go. And I realize that there are budgetary constraints here, but I think, our animals are important. Essex County has a shameful history with regard to animal control, and I think that Maplewood should do better, and I think we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. I also wanted to say, Ms. Bailey, that I know that we all received the email that you sent us about 10 days ago or so, so thank you for that as well.
Thank you.
Good evening, AJ Albrecht, 123 Prospect Place in South Orange. I also sent you all an email, I believe it was yesterday or maybe 2 days ago. I am part of the legislative advocacy team with Best Friends Animal Society. We are the only national large-scale operation, and our mission is to reduce shelter killing. And I can tell you that the animals of Soma are on our radar, and we're here to help. I am a local resident. We have many resources available to Maplewood and as well as South Orange to help guide you in this decision to stick with St. Hubert's. We also have grants available through our nonprofit. So like I said, I don't want to take up too much of your time since I did email you testimony, but I have business cards here that I will leave here on this platform, and my team and I would be very eager to work with all of you on making sure that Soma animals are taken care of like they deserve to be. Thank you.
If you can give the cards to our clerk, that would be better. Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? Okay, thank you. We're going to close the public hearing. We're going to move into the Board of Health meeting for February.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2017 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2016, and by filing said notice in the office of the township clerk. Mr. Adams? Here. Mayor DeLuca?
Here.
Mr. Lambert?
Here.
Mr. McGehee?
Here.
Mrs. Larry? Here. Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public, and whereas Section 7 provides that the Board of Health has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas it's a desire of the Maplewood Board of Health to comply with the provision of this Act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be it resolved by the Maplewood Board of Health, Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in deliberations by the Board of Health by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observation of the actions and discussions of the Board of Health at all of its regular and special meetings. So moved.
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larry?
Yes. Thank you, and welcome to the February Board of Health meeting. Can I get approval, do we get minutes?
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
did.
did get minutes, yes.
I move them.
Thank you.
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larry?
Yes. Mr. Rowe?
Just a couple of quick points. The major work, single job done at the health department this month was the nurses in checking immunization records at child care centers, and that's a massive job. There's hundreds, maybe thousands of kids in daycare center now. We have at least 14 daycares in town. So they've completed that. Most of the daycares are pretty good. They'll be following up with the ones who didn't have complete records, and we'll be doing that this month in February. And just to make note that one of the vaccination children and daycare centers are required to get is the flu vaccine. And from every report I've heard, it seems like the flu is hitting our area. So by having that requirement and having our nurses enforce that requirement, we're protecting the children from flu. So, and then that protects their parents and it protects the seniors. So it's a good strategic plan for public health. Tomorrow, the nurses are going to be speaking at the senior meeting at the new senior building. The recreation department has started some what they call lunch and learn programs. And so I think they've hit on a really good formula for attracting seniors. Have lunch and learn something. It doesn't have to be health issues. It could be all sorts of issues. So I think they've hit on a really good formula for bringing seniors together. And finally, we have some of the key leaders of our local trap, neuter, release program here, initiative. So I'll have to say in the last few months, the program has kind of floundered and run out of steam. So I've been speaking with them. We're going to organize another nighttime meeting and try to re-energize the program. And I know this is the third year of the pilot, so we want it to succeed. I'm fully convinced that it is the right way to go, and I want to see the project succeed. That's my report.
Any questions for Mr. Rowe? I will point out that the trap, neuter, and release program will also be part of the conversation that we are having with South Orange as well when we do meet.
Yeah, I think it should be a joint program somehow with both towns. Between the two towns, I think we have enough volunteers to continue a successful program.
And Mr. Owen, when we say trap, neuter, release, are we vaccinating as well or no?
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, so it's trap, neuter, vaccinate, release.
Okay, yeah, because sometimes I see TNR, sometimes I see TNVR, and I don't know whether they're synonymous.
It's the same. And I'll just say, my own non-mathematical metric impression is that the program is definitely working. And so we'll try our best to get numbers. But I know that's important.
Thank you.
And the cats are gone from the mayor's yard.
No, they're back. They're back.
We're back.
They're back.
Okay, well, that may be one of our first places to go.
Mr. DeLuca, Mayor DeLuca.
Just wanted to, I know some people talked about St. Hubert's. We have a contract with St. Hubert's. It carried over into 2017.
Yes.
We're continuing with that contract. We're also having conversations with South Orange under your leadership of our team. And so no decisions have been made. We haven't seen a proposal from South Orange yet.
No, should be here by Friday.
Okay, so once we get that proposal, our team will look at it, and then we'll come back and talk about money, operation, shelter or not shelter, and make a decision going forward. But we're still a couple months out from making any kind of decision, right?
I would say at least, I have, however, spoken with Village President Sheena Cullum. She's anxious to move forward, so. Any other comments or questions?
I have a question. And I realize, that, it's still early in the process, but would South Orange be able to have a partnership with Livingston without us? Or would we be an important component of South Orange's plan?
I don't frankly know that we're capable of answering that question just yet until we speak with South Orange. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Manning.
No, you're right.
Okay.
They've already have a contract with Livingston, so they've already moved in that direction.
Okay,
South Orange. Yeah.
Okay, so they're doing that independent of us. So the question would be whether we would join them. But our staying with St. Hubert's will have no impact on South Orange necessarily.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
If we were to not enter into an agreement with South Orange, no, I would imagine it would.
Right, but if we were to enter into an agreement, it would be with Livingston, not with South Orange, right?
No, it would be with South Orange.
Okay.
Because we would use their animal control officer, and then we would enter into a three-party agreement to use Livingston, similar to how South Orange is using Livingston.
Okay.
That's why we're having discussions with South Orange, because they would be the lead.
Okay, no, I was just trying to figure out why South Orange was involved, and now I understand.
The ACO.
The web, yes, okay.
At this point, I would invite anyone who wants to address the Board of Health to come forward. Being no one, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lambrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mrs. Lowry?
Yes.
Thank you. We're going to go back to the main agenda. It's item number 9, ordinance on final passage.
Mr. Mayor, item number 9, ordinance on final passage. Ordinance number 2847-17 is an ordinance to establish cold weather heating requirements within the Township of Maplewood. This ordinance will establish uniform heating requirements for residential rental properties within the Township of Maplewood.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who wants to speak on this ordinance, which will require minimum heat in all residential rental properties to be 68 degrees Fahrenheit between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. and 65 degrees between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m.? Anyone want to speak on this? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Mrs. Larry, can we get a motion?
Yes, you may. I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a past ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mrs. Lowry?
Yes.
Mr. Lambrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Okay, we're now going to go to our discussion items. And the first one is the table of organization for the Maplewood Police Department, and Chief Semino is here. We're going to ask him to, thank you for doing with the doors. Ask if you can come up here and sit at the table. So thank you, Chief, for coming out.
Good evening, thank you.
And we've received, the budget meeting, we had the opportunity to, hear your recommendation or request for a third captain. Wonder if you wanted to say a little bit more about that? Just a summary too for the people who might be watching.
Certainly, Mayor. And we talked about, I think the summary that you gave was very appropriate. And essentially, the police job has changed tremendously over the last couple of years. The demands that we have for...
I'm sorry, Mr. Manning, could you go ask him to move around the corner or something? Thank you. Okay.
The demands for oversight and various training have really expanded dramatically from what we had. And the structure of the department consequently needs to be changed because of that. We need additional oversight. My recommendation to the committee has been to increase our captains by one position. And that is because the level of a captain, the rank of a captain, brings with it the authority to do the proper oversight for the various programs that the department needs to maintain and possibly even increase. And I should say that, many of these programs are very well received. They're important for our agency. They're important for the community. However, they do require that additional oversight. And I believe the captain's position is the one that really needs to be the oversight place for those programs.
So just currently, our table of organization, we have 1 chief of police, 2 captains, we have 5 lieutenants, and 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 sergeants?
Yes.
And then the rest are detectives and officers?
Correct.
So you would want there to be a 3rd captain, but you'd also want to keep the same complement of officers, so we'd add another officer, so bring up from 63 to 64?
That's correct.
And we did receive an email today of cost, if I could find it. Yeah, $93,000, almost $93,000, and that's to move the lieutenant to captain, sergeant, lieutenant, detective, and then a new officer. So this is the first year, right? $93,000.
I believe that's correct.
And then after that, a new officer, after it comes out of the academy, goes from 35 to
57, I believe.
I think it's 35, and it goes up to 45.
45.
Second.
Okay.
Second jump.
So there's a cost, we're talking about not just a one-time cost, but a cost each year, and then there's a little bump in the second year from the person going from academy to.
Correct.
Okay, well, questions?
I have some questions. Chief, I don't know how closely you followed the revision of the table of organization, some of the schedule changes that the South Orange Police Department has gone through in the last couple of years, but I wanted to ask you, there they did a study, a data-driven study that came back with recommendations, and in response, they changed their police duty schedule to more closely correlate with calls for service, and in the process, they actually reduced in their table from their 2 captains down to 1. And obviously, Maplewood has a larger population than South Orange, and it's a different town, but I'm curious if you could sort of address, and if I'm comparing apples to oranges, you can tell me. But, a question that I've been getting from people is, in the last couple of years, South Orange went from 2 captains down to 1 and has not seen a significant uptick in crime. How do we justify going from 2 to 3?
Okay. Well, I have not seen the South Orange study, but what I can tell you about Maplewood is that, our department and our organization has different composition based upon the number of officers, the age and experience level of the officers, and I'm not sure of what the distribution of duties was among the South Orange ranks. But for our ranks here in Maplewood, with the challenges that we have currently based upon where our organization is at today and over the last couple of years, based upon our experiences, I feel that we need the extra rank of captain. Duties can be modified and take on different rank levels depending upon where an organization is at and what the challenges of that organization are. My opinion is that based upon where we sit today and our level of experience and the demands that we have, that we need that 3rd captain's position, because we need the rank that has the authority over the number of lieutenants and sergeants that we currently have.
Okay, and Chief, if I can get you a copy of the South Orange report, maybe could you take a look at that and maybe sort of, maybe just explain, how it is that's different, because I understand what you're saying in theory, but I think if you were to look at it, you may be able to help us understand, because, as you know, we frequently South Orange was one of our closest local benchmarks. Usually, we look at what each other are doing. My second question, and I do not mean to steal any thunder from Mr. McGeehee, but one of the biggest issues that we hear about, and I'm sure you hear about from residents, is traffic safety, is pedestrian safety. And I was wondering if you could speak to the extent, if any, to which adding this captain but keeping otherwise the same number of officers in the positions below that might help us to enlarge or enhance our traffic safety and pedestrian safety capabilities.
Certainly. As I tried to lay out in my proposal, the third captain that I am recommending is really going to be a patrol captain's function. And because of that, the oversight for traffic enforcement is going to be a direct report to that captain. And that captain will not have the other duties that formerly were handled by just two captains, and those being other administrative and budgetary oversight responsibilities. By focusing with the third captain on the patrol division, that captain can have a direct impact on improving the enforcement effort by the patrol division.
So we're talking about sort of more direct authority, but also greater accountability for that, because they won't have as large a portfolio of other responsibilities.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
My question is just a little bit along those lines, and it's okay to steal the thunder, it's important. So when you talk about patrol, that is inclusive of traffic safety, pedestrian safety, as you mean by the patrol segment of the force? I just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
Correct. Well, the uniform division does the traffic enforcement, and that is where the patrol division captain will have their authority and responsibility.
When you broke out the list here, the Captain 3, that's what Operations Commander, that's what we're talking about. And you have here the Traffic Commander, Traffic Enforcement, Initiative Compliance, Crossing Guards. So the whole traffic, pedestrian safety is
all under that captain's authority level.
Is that what?
Chief, what has changed with regard to the work done by the police department that you feel that the two existing captains haven't been able to, I'm presuming, take care of the entire workload? What is increased so significantly that you feel another captain is necessary?
Well, one of the things that we wanted to enhance was the traffic enforcement issue, which has been discussed by Mr. Lembrick and Mr. McGeehee. And the emphasis that's been placed on it by the community, and rightly so, does require a command level officer to directly monitor the activities of the patrol lieutenants, sergeants, and officers on all three shifts. Now, previously, that was one of the captain's responsibilities, one of the two other captains' responsibilities, but those two captains now have an increase in duties, especially the internal affairs function, which has expanded in the number of cases that have to be investigated, the way that they have to be investigated, and also the training and reporting that goes along with those functions, because the community as well as the state in general have become more focused on police accountability. So that's been a huge addition to the duties that were formerly done by two captains, and now those duties have started to crowd out some of the other responsibilities that the captains had.
And if we were to approve another captain, and I'm not sure if Mr. Lembrick was alluding to this a little bit before, let's just say, would it, I think I asked this during the budget hearing, is there any give and take on your part, so to speak, as to, do we really need to increase the total number of police staff? And would you be able to achieve what you want to achieve? Maybe not in, your dream achieving, dream level of officers, but maybe something that we might be able to swallow a little better and maybe deal with budgetarily a little better if, for example, we did not add a new officer to the team.
Well, the thing that you take away if you don't add back or backfill the position of the officer that would then be elevated through the ranks to make the new captain's position is that bottom level patrol officer, which gives us our general patrol coverage for regular duties on the road, as well as, every officer out there has a responsibility to do traffic enforcement and respond to emergency calls. We base our staffing on what our experience has shown us for various shifts, and one of those shifts would be one officer shorter than it would be today. We would want to maintain the right complement of officers on a regular basis, and the bottom line is the majority of that, the way we would fill that would be through hiring overtime for several hours for the shift affected by the lack of one of those officers.
How many, over the last 10 years, what has been there were fewer officers and then we've created new positions. So we're up to where we were before you started cutting, or we're getting close? What's the numbers on that?
Our highest level of staffing was 66 officers, and that was in 2008. And when the economy tanked, we laid off several officers, some through attrition, there were layoffs, and slowly we've added several officers back, and now we're currently at 63. But our full complement was 66.
Okay, and your report, the police reports we get, overall crime is down. So
Yes.
you guys are doing more with less. Oh, okay. And I guess, is there possibility of seeing how it would work if we were to elevate an existing employee to captain to take over the traffic part that we've been talking about, and maybe see how creative that person could be in improving traffic safety and pedestrian safety, and then think about seeing whether or not we need to add another officer next year?
Well, I have to work within the budget that you give me.
Yeah, I know.
That's been my role, that's been my goal. I can only recommend to you what I think is the optimum number of officers. If you choose to do that, I will find the best way to make that work under the circumstances. But my formal recommendation to you would be to replace the officer. And I can tell you that I know the rank and file would prefer that, because one thing I can tell you about using overtime to supplement on a long term is that eventually, as much as, officers don't mind overtime for a period of time, there does become a saturation point where officers are constantly being requested to work overtime time and time again. And that then can take a toll on the officers as well. It affects the number of days off or which days off they have by virtue of the type of schedule we work. And that means that certain officers will not have day off selections that they would normally have with the full complement of officers of 38 in the patrol division.
Anybody have any other questions or comments? Okay. Chief, let me just get this clear. If we were to authorize a third captain and not authorize a backfill, you would still want to see a third captain though, right?
Absolutely.
That's your priority, as a third captain?
It most certainly is.
And I think in the budget hearings, you mentioned something about the new use of the body cameras also is something that we're learning, and that would, it also impacts this. Now, would the new captain be involved with that, or would the?
Well, part of that captain's oversight responsibilities are to make sure that those cameras are being used properly and that the reporting and the oversight of the other supervisors is happening properly in the use of the body-worn camera systems and any other recording systems that we have. That's part of the compliance duties that I list in here. So yes, that's a big part of that patrol captain's responsibility, operations commander's responsibilities.
As a practical matter, we have a list of lieutenants that are eligible to be promoted to captains.
Yes.
We also have a list of sergeants to be eligible promoted to lieutenants.
Yes.
And do we have a list of officers? So this would be just a natural occurrence. If we were to create the captain seat, one of those lieutenants would become a captain, one of the sergeants would become a lieutenant. We would have to do, and then one of the officers would become a sergeant. Don't have to do any tests. There's no cost incurred at that point, at this point.
Correct. The lists are established right now.
Mandatory that we then move everyone up to upfill, for lack of a better term?
Right, yes. The answer would be yes. If the position is open, you would want to fill it. You would be required, you would be required to fill the position the way I understand the ordinance to read.
Chief, one thought is to, a couple different thoughts kicking around here, but one thought is to approve this third captain, because this is a learning process here. We got this, as you say, we got some new responsibilities. We've got an increase in the internal affairs and the accountability. There's going to be some training that we're going to do. There's the Attorney General order to do more training around community sensitivity and unintentional bias.
Implicit bias, fairness.
Implicit bias. And the question is, would it work if we were to create a third captain and then have a system of measuring this with some benchmarks? And then if there was, in the future, if there was the ability through attrition to reduce it back to two captains, I would assume that that's something that could occur. We've done that before.
Correct.
So this is not something that is going to be in stone forever. We can evaluate this going forward.
It's up to the committee to do that. It's certainly within your right to do that.
Because we've had three captains, went to two, we went back to three for a while. Correct. With the idea that when someone retired, we were going to go back to two. I mean, my own view is that I'm willing to support you on this, but I'm hesitant about making it permanent forever, and would like to, at the time that there's a natural attrition, I'm not talking about layoffs, but a natural attrition, when one of the captains leaves, to evaluate that, and from now until that point, to have some markers so that we understand better how the addition of the third captain worked. Are we seeing more traffic enforcement? Are we seeing better trained officers, better trained bosses? The whole routine. You got lieutenants supervising sergeants, sergeants supervising officers. Is all that working better?
Right.
But one of the points you've made is that a lot of our lieutenants and sergeants are relatively new on the force, and they need the support from a strong captain in order to do the work with their officers and their subordinates.
That's correct.
So I'm willing to think about doing this and putting the money in to do this, but I would like to just put in there that there be some measurement along the way, some objective measurement along the way, and also at the point when there's an attrition in that among those three captains, that the township committee at that point review whether or not that table of organization should remain.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I mean, I understand that, and I'm sure there's a mechanism that we could decide upon that would give you a sense of comfort in doing that in terms of whether it's a review within the annual report or some other means, that can certainly be done.
So we need to, our role here tonight is, because there's a time factor here. Could you explain the time factor?
Right, well, the current list that you spoke of earlier, which establishes the eligibility for the certain ranks that would be promoted, will expire in 90 days. So that would mean that to move the process along, we would need to amend the ordinance so that the position was established, and then have the ability to have the proper number of readings, and then do the interview process and make the promotion within that time frame.
Okay, so our decision tonight is whether or not we authorize Mr. Desiderio to move forward with drafting an ordinance, which would be introduced, there'd be a public hearing, and then there'd be a final decision. It doesn't, any decision tonight doesn't bind you to voting in a month from now for that ordinance. But if we don't have three people that want to just move forward at this point, then that's a legitimate answer too, so.
Ask Mr. Desiderio to draft the ordinance. Are we asking him, citing tonight, draft it with the backfill of the officer or without, or that open?
The ordinance as drafted presently does not talk about officers. It says, such officers as the township committee should deem necessary. So while it specifically sets forth superior officers, a chief, presently 2 captains, 5 lieutenants, 10 sergeants, and such officers as the township committee deems necessary. So there is no specific number in the ordinance, and that number is up to you to make a determination of from time to time. I mean, in the past, you've had federal programs that have had officers, et cetera, matching, and you've done that. So, and what the way we have the ordinance drafted is not more than. So if we put in the ordinance not more than 3, and subsequently you decide you don't want to replace a 3rd captain for whatever reason, you really don't have to change the ordinance if you don't want to, because you have that flexibility.
So there's a couple of different opportunities here for somebody to support adding a captain, but not support adding a police officer.
Right.
Someone could support adding a captain and a police officer, but those could be different decisions.
Right. But
or it could be that, I'm sorry, it could be just someone doesn't want to add a captain.
Won't do anything.
Right.
But the ordinance itself would not address the backfill correct position.
Sorry. Okay. Go ahead.
I don't know if we're at that point, but I would certainly be.
With which? The captain?
The captain, yes.
So up to would allow us to do what I was saying, that at some point we'd go back to 2.
Well, not more than is what.
Not more than,
not
yeah,
more than.
yes, not more than, okay. Any other thoughts?
Are you telling me to do it or not do it?
I mean, we're gonna do, we're gonna have to make a motion and then see if we get 3 votes for it.
Okay.
I would make that motion.
What motion?
Motion is to instruct Mr. Desiderio to craft an ordinance to change the table of organizations to not more than 3 captains.
Maintain the same number of lieutenants and maintain the same number of sergeants.
Correct.
Okay. I would second that.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, so discussion on the motion. Or a vote? Okay. Call for a vote.
Ms. Adams?
Yes, for now.
Mrs. Louder?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
No.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Passes 4-1.
So we'll introduce this at the next meeting.
At the 21st, and then the first meeting in March will come up.
First meeting in March will be a public hearing, and we'll decide whether or not, at that point, we can also begin conversations about the backfill or not.
Right.
We do have an opening right now, too, right?
Yes.
There's one vacancy.
There's one
so-
vacancy right now.
Okay.
So the schedule is first reading on the 21st, final
On March 7th, I think it is.
March 7th, okay.
Yeah.
And that decision can be independent of any backfill.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Okay.
Our condolences on your losses.
Thank you.
The first annual chili cook-off, not to go from serious subject to fun subject, but, and the reason it's Sunday, February 26th, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Woodland, and it's a benefit for the Rent Party. It's a group of residents are seeking to do the chili cook-off. It's a $10 tasting charge. The request from the chili folks is that there's going to be this prize. It's going to be a pauldron of chili. And they would like, the winner is going to get this pot, and they would like to store it here in Town Hall in the lobby.
With the chili?
Not with the chili.
Okay.
It would be like the Stanley Cup. It would go to the winner for maybe a week and then come back, and every year it would come back to the lobby. So I think that's a cool idea.
How big is the cauldron?
It's not that big because we were measuring it. It could either fit in the display case or up on top.
Okay.
We leave it out and take donations.
Well, that might be too.
We are putting.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we want it covered so we don't end up with it being used as a trash can. But anyway, this is the idea, is to have this, this pot here that would be, hopefully there'd be many more of these chili cook-offs, and then every year it would be taken from Town Hall over and given to the winner, and then there'd be a plaque put on and brought back. So everybody's okay with that?
Great.
All right, cool. All right, Affordable Care Act, Mrs. Larrier.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think everyone knows that at this point in Washington, there is a concerted effort, though it is greatly slowed, but it is a concerted effort to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And in fact, due to the Affordable Care Act, the number of uninsured in this country has gone way down. There are 30 million people in the United States who have coverage now who didn't have it. There are over 800,000 in New Jersey alone who also have coverage. As a result of the Affordable Care Act, also our governor, something good that he did do actually was to expand Medicaid so that we did have hundreds of thousands of people who had coverage who were not eligible for coverage before. Due to the efforts of the Republicans to repeal it, advocates have been asking for governing bodies to pass resolutions urging the Republicans not to repeal the Affordable Care Act without a suitable and adequate replacement immediately, meaning one that would not jeopardize the coverage of so many people who have it now. I'm asking, I did send around or email to you a copy of the Essex County resolution, the Essex County Board of Chosen Freeholders, as well as the boards of Hudson County and Union County and Mercer County have all passed this resolution. Jersey City, in addition, has passed this resolution. We are asking all of the boards to pass them, and I am asking the Maplewood Township Committee also to pass them. One thing that we did discover is there is an organization, I won't even say their name, but there is an organization who has been placing ads in the districts of Republican congressmen saying that there is a plan and they're ready to they have a plan ready to replace the Affordable Care Act. And in fact, that is not the case. There is no plan that they have agreed upon. Even President Trump himself, to Fox News, I might add, stated that he doesn't expect one to be ready or available until the end of this year. So they have nothing to replace this with, and they are bent on repealing it. So we would just like to, I would just ask that we put our voice in with others to say no repeal without replace, and to certainly send this around to New Jersey State not New Jersey State, but the congressmen specifically, that this is our desire, So
are you moving a resolution?
I am moving a resolution.
Which one? This one is, I have the one from the Essex County Freeholders, which was from a while back, right?
Well, a couple of weeks back, yes.
Oh, okay, so it's not that, it's still current, okay.
Yes. Yes, so I would move that we pass a resolution similar to the one that we asked Mr. Desiderio to look over this and adapt the language of this resolution. I think I did send it to you.
Yeah, I have the Essex County one, yes.
Yes.
Chosen freeholders.
That we adapt this to be Maplewood specific, and that we pass this at our earliest convenience.
Oh, at the next meeting?
At the next meeting.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Today?
Well, we could do it today, that's what I'm
Yeah,
asking.
no, because this is Essex counties, and it needs to be, the language
Okay.
needs to be changed.
So so is everyone okay to instruct Mr. Desiderio to adapt this resolution to make it Maplewood specific and then bring it back at the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, next up, leaf blower.
Yes, Mayor. I have a report that I hope isn't too long, but as you'll hear in this report, there's quite a bit of information gathered since last August by our subcommittee. So I've written something up, and I'm going to share it with you after the meeting in print, but I only have my copy right now. So, following a pilot program banning the use of gas-powered leaf blowers during the summer months, the Township Committee asked Mr. Lembrick and me to co-chair our subcommittee to research the issue and interview commercial landscapers who do work in Maplewood. Originally, the subcommittee was looking into pesticide use also, but the committee deemed that, for now anyway, rather than educating the public about the negative impacts of using pesticides, their use was well regulated by state and federal agencies for now, again, and the leaf blower issue dominated the conversations and discussions, leaving little opportunity for pesticide research and discussion. We, as the chairs, decided not to continue that discussion at this time because it was being overwhelmed by the other issue. So as I said, there's a lot of information on leaf blowers that we found, most of it about what's wrong with them. This concerned a couple of committee members who did not agree with the ban on leaf blowers. However, when asked to find information that supported the use of leaf blowers as being good for anyone other than those contractors whose work is expedited, there was nothing positive found or at least shared with the committee. There is no environmental reason that leaf blowers are good. There is no health reason that leaf blowers are good. They are really simply an efficient tool for the contractors. There were fears that contractors will have to charge more to clients if they are not permitted to use leaf blowers, but there was no evidence gathered to support this premise in places where leaf blowers have been banned. The reality is that there is plenty of competition to keep prices from rising too much, if at all, and there is substantial savings in fuel that mitigates extra labor costs involved with sweeping. In the landscaper interviews, the subcommittee brought 7 landscapers in individually to meet with them to hear their thoughts on the leaf blowers and on the summer ban, as well as the possibility of an annual ban on the use of leaf blowers. We also interviewed the executive director of the New Jersey Landscapers Association and met with him another time. The mayor and I met with him. So overall, the landscapers agreed that the leaf blowers they use are annoyingly loud, but they said a necessary part of their work. The majority of them also said that they don't really need them in the summer, other than the demands of their customers wanting their properties left more clean and neat. Landscapers reported that some of their clients would rather their landscaper use the leaf blowers in defiance of the law banning them, and said that they would pay any fine levied on their landscaper. Landscapers asked that we allow the lower powered, the 65 decibel leaf blowers in the summer, but it admitted others would still use the stronger ones regardless of any law banning them or limiting their use. Overall, the landscapers would be in favor of restricting the hours of operation more and not permitting leaf blowers on Sundays. Several would also favor a ban on them on Saturdays as well. The main theme amongst the landscapers interviewed was the importance of a level playing field with their competitors. If we were to have an annual ban, they said, they'd prefer stricter enforcement and higher fines for those breaking the law because the cleanliness of the properties maintained using the blowers was better than where they weren't used. And they also favored a complete ban in summer to include residents, but if that wasn't possible, at least to be consistent in banning them for other professionals such as gutter cleaning companies. Subcommittee members suggested landscapers offer a menu of services so that residents, their clients, could pick and choose whether or not they wanted leaf blowers used, but most said they only offer one package that includes mowing, trimming, and blowing to all their customers. Most do the same thing every week, even though in the summer, all lawns don't necessarily need to be mowed every week since they're often dry and not growing, but they have employees who need to be paid, and they have customers who need to be kept, and some admitted to making work where they wouldn't ordinarily do it because of this. So research. The committee members spent a lot of time on their own gathering information and research about leaf blowers, their effects on people, the environment, other bans, and more. Here is some of what was found. Several municipalities and even states, including New Jersey not too many years back, considered leaf blower bans. Over 400 towns in California have either partial, usually summer, or full bans. Several towns in Colorado, Connecticut, Maryland, Massachusetts, Florida, Illinois, New York, Oregon, New Hampshire, and Arizona have full or partial bans. The reasons stated for the bans are mainly that the machines are extremely damaging to topsoil, trees, flower beds, vital soil-dwelling organisms, that the amount of noise pollution created by these machines is disruptive to the workers as well as people in surrounding areas. The air pollution created by the gas-powered mowers is made up of many things, including carbon monoxide and nitrous oxide, which are toxic to humans. So the two-stroke engines we found were originally manufactured for motorcycles until they were no longer permitted on motorcycles because the engines were too dirty to pass the emissions tests required for road vehicles in our country. So the manufacturers apparently found another way to sell these engines and created a new normal, one that has become much more profitable for them than motorcycles because there is no regular emissions testing on lawn maintenance equipment like there is for motor vehicles. With no annual inspection required, once the piece of equipment is made with a two-stroke engine and sold, it is not inspected again. That equipment is predominantly gas-powered leaf blowers, backpack blowers, sorry. And it's fair to say that there are far more leaf blowers running every day in this town and many others than there are motorcycles. So from the EPA, we learned that particulate pollution is released from yard equipment during the combustion of gasoline. It can be lodged deep in the lungs and cause respiratory problems, cardiac arrhythmia, and heart attacks. It can impact children, the elderly, and people with emphysema, bronchitis, and asthma. Volatile organic compound, or VOC, emissions are also released during the combustion of gasoline while using yard equipment. The chemicals in VOC can form ground-level ozone, smog, which can cause breathing difficulties, especially in children, the elderly, and people with existing respiratory problems like asthma. Blower engines generate high noise levels. Gasoline-powered leaf blower noise is a danger to the health of the blower operator and an annoyance to the non-consenting citizens in the area of its usage. The two-stroke engines have several attributes that are advantageous for applications such as leaf blowers. Two-stroke engines are lightweight in comparison to the power they generate, and they operate in any position, allowing for greater flexibility in equipment applications. So multi-positional operation is made possible by mixing the lubricating oil with the fuel. The engine is thus properly lubricated when operated at a steep angle or even upside down. A major disadvantage of two-stroke engines is high exhaust emissions. Typical two-stroke designs feed more of the fuel-oil mixture than necessary into the combustion chamber. Through a process known as scavenging, the incoming fuel enters the combustion chamber as the exhaust is leaving. This timing overlap intake and exhaust can result in as much as 30% of the fuel-oil mixture being exhausted unburned. Thus, exhaust emissions consist of both unburned fuel and products of incomplete combustion. The major pollutants from a two-stroke engine, therefore, are oil-based particulates, a mixture of hydrocarbons and carbon monoxide. A two-stroke engine forms relatively little oxides of nitrogen emissions because the extra fuel absorbs the heat and keeps peak combustion temperatures low. There are a small percentage of blowers that are used in town and in other places that have four-stroke engines. These blowers are typically the ones you see that are walk-behind models, used to clean large parking lots and industrial facilities rather than lawns and driveways. Overall, the engines used in these blowers emit significantly lower emissions than their two-stroke counterparts. With significantly lower levels of hydrocarbons and particulate matter, these four-stroke blower engines have considerably lower population, though, than the traditional two-stroke blowers. The effect of the sound on the ear are determined by its quality, which consists of the duration, intensity, frequency, overtone structure, and the psychoacoustic variables of pitch, loudness, and tone quality. Duration, high-intensity sounds are the most damaging to hearing and usually perceived as the most annoying. High-frequency sounds up to the limit of hearing tend to be more annoying and potentially more hazardous due to low-frequency sounds. Intermittent sounds appear to be less damaging than continuous noise because the ear appears to be able to recover or heal during the intervening quiet periods. Random intermittent sounds, however, can be more annoying, although not necessarily more hazardous because of their unpredictability. The nonprofit organization Quiet Communities states, quote, regulation of leaf blowers or other gas-powered equipment by local or regional authorities may be implemented through a general regulation such as a noise or pollution ordinance, or an equipment-specific regulation such as a leaf blower ban. They recommend proactive use by municipalities of non-fossil fuel-powered maintenance equipment where possible, and also encourage regular education to the public. So in summary, there were many discussions about whether or not to ban leaf blowers in Maplewood, whether full or partial. Several members spoke about the daily interruption in their lives by the regular visits of landscaping companies to their neighborhoods. Most of the complaints were about the noise and the smell, and especially about the interruption in the work of at-home workers and the sleep of young children and babies. Others disagreed and stated, while they don't like the sound, the impact was a couple of times a week for 20 minutes or so at a time. The committee decided after many impassioned discussions that where one lived and how often they are at home had the most to do with how they were affected or how they perceived the impact on their lives. Many discussions were also had on how to enforce any law passed on leaf blowers and whether or not it was possible to do so. The conclusion of was that difficulty of enforcement should not keep Maplewood from developing laws on leaf blowers. There was extensive discussion on the negative impact the use of leaf blowers has on the quality of soil, water, trees, shrubs, plants, in other words, on a healthy yard. The negative impacts on birds, wildlife, pets were also discussed and have been documented in research. The committee's majority recommendation restrictions on leaf blowers for the good of its residents, for quality of life reasons, and for the health and well-being of residents, our water, and our air. The committee recommended the following amendments to the existing ordinance or a new ordinance, if that's what we are deciding to do. Number one, an annual ban on gas, not electric, commercial leaf blowers from May 15th through October 15th. This would lift the current 65 decibel restrictions by simply banning all blowers during the summer, and then all decibel blowers are permitted for spring cleanup and for fall. Restrict the number of commercial blowers being used at one time on any one piece of property. Recommendation was a maximum of 2 blowers at a time, and this committee still needs to discuss the total number of engine run equipment at one time to be permitted on any one piece of property. More restrictive hours of operation of commercial leaf blowers. The suggested Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Sundays with no permitted hours. Leaves should not be left for more than 7 days before regular DPW pickup. They suggest requiring workers to wear safety equipment for both hearing and breathing. There was a major suggestion for increase in fines dramatically. The suggestion was a minimum of $500 to $1,000 for first offense. No ban on residential use of leaf blowers except outside of the hours permitted above. No ban on electric leaf blowers, whether commercial or residential. And the request for more regular, comprehensive educational information distributed to the public on a regular basis by the Green Team and the Environmental Commission. That is my report, Mayor. Thank you for your indulgence, and thank you to everyone who worked on this subcommittee.
Thank you. So what I would suggest, if we could, because I was trying to write down the recommendations, if we could get the recommendations and then put this on for discussion. And just to remind us, this year was what, June 1st to September 30th?
No, September 1st.
September 1st.
August 31st.
And just to let you know, I was trying to edit this report because, as you could tell, it was very long. Just to let you know that the reason for the May 15th to October 15th was in discussion not only amongst the committee members, but with the landscapers, and they can get their cleanup done for spring cleanup in March, April, and the beginning of May, and they really don't need, since leaves don't really start falling in quantity until late October, they really don't need them before then.
Okay. Can we get those recommendations and then put this on for the next meeting?
I will circulate the entire report, so. Yeah, I will circulate the report and to, yes, to everyone who needs it, and highlight the recommendations at the end of the report.
Anybody have any comments now?
One question. When you made the recommendation about not banning for residential or commercial electric blowers, that's during this ban time?
Yeah, that's at all.
That's at all.
Right. There was no, right.
What was the response of the landscapers?
Most landscapers know that there are commercial landscaping companies that, few and far between. I think it would be a growing field, but most of them aren't willing to lay out the initial investment to buy the equipment. And there's a company in Rochester that has all battery-powered, commercial-grade equipment for landscaping, for lawn maintenance, and they have solar panels on their trucks to recharge the batteries all the time. So they are, and comparatively speaking, they are much, much, much quieter than the gas-powered, and obviously, for all the reasons I just went through, much healthier for everything.
And it wouldn't ever be the case where somebody broke out a generator to run a bunch of
No, they're not plug-in typically, they're batteries, so the batteries are charged elsewhere. Yeah.
I had just two things that I wanted to raise, three things actually. One, which Mrs. Laird just started to refer to, was the committee proposed the ban apply to commercial people who are using it for business, but not to residents. And I will note that this was an issue that was somewhat divisive on the committee. And I've said from the beginning and all along that I'm not sure that I'm comfortable, with the sort of commercial versus residential divide. I mean, I think that, well, certainly it decreases the use to ban one group and not another, that the reasons for the ban, environmental, health, et cetera, are the same regardless of who's using the blower. So, I mean, that's an issue that I have, and that's where I, even as someone who was on the committee, I was in the minority view on that. Another issue that's been brought up is whether this would apply to the gutter cleaners. And I think the recommendation is that it should, but I think that's something that we'll want to consider, because, we did a landscaper for the pilot program last year, and I think that I may want to gather some more information on the gutter cleaners. Obviously, they're only coming through fewer times a year. Obviously, gutter cleaners are not coming every week or every other week. And it may be that the gutter cleaners are able to do most of their work outside of the time when the blowers are needed. And the final issue, and Deputy Mayor Adams certainly alluded to this, but I think that will be an issue that this committee, more so than the subcommittee, will need to give some serious thought to, will be the issue of enforcement and the difficulty of enforcing this. Obviously, increasing the fines, may provide enough of a deterrent, especially if, if few people get hit with a fine of $500 or $1,000, that may be a significant deterrent, and word may spread around. But and I'd say that's, Deputy Mayor Adams, can certainly correct me if she disagrees, but one of the biggest themes that we got in talking with landscapers is a lot of people said, I'm responsible and I will follow whatever rules you make, but, I can't, I know that there's other people that will not. And we need to have a level playing field. So, if I'm the only one who's following the rules, then you're really going to be hurting my business. If everyone else is just going to violate it. So we need some way, if it isn't well enforced, it may as well not exist. So enforcement is something that this committee, in crafting a new ordinance or amending the ordinance, is going to need to give some thought to, because obviously we have limited potential to enforce through code enforcement. We have, the code enforcement staff is small, and they have a lot of codes to enforce, not just this one. And, the idea of, at least on a consistent and regular basis, using our police officers to enforce this, particularly if it's to the detriment of other patrols, traffic, public safety, et cetera, is not palatable to me either. So I just wanted to raise these few issues sort of that were on the top of my mind, all of which I think Deputy Mayor Adams mentioned in her comprehensive report, but that I wanted to highlight a little bit as someone else who was on the committee and attended many of the meetings.
Any other comments?
Sure, I agree with Mr. Limbrick. I think you're pretty thorough. And my question was about the fines and enforcement. I think that's very important to make sure, as you articulate, a level playing field. I've heard from many landscapers saying, yeah, but that guy down the block is doing it, so why why can't I do it? What are you going to do about that? So we need to really think through that process. And I totally agree with maximizing out the fines as well.
Yeah, that's what the subcommittee was, as far as the fines go, the subcommittee, and one of our volunteers is here, Bill Steinbrun. They pretty much, I think we universally agreed on raising the fines for that very reason, so that, because word gets around. And that was probably the best way to level the playing field. And the landscapers were pretty much all in favor of raising the fines because they're following the rule. They're not going to get fined, so it shouldn't affect them, but.
Yeah. Right. And we may want to speak with Mr. Palma, who'll be in charge with, because if code enforcement or the police issues a citation, she'll be responsible for prosecuting it. And I think we'll just want to make it clear that, that the prosecution of this and actually, imposing these fines is going to have an important deterrent effect. And if landscapers get the sense that either the prosecutor or the judge is not inclined to actually follow through, then not only will the ordinance not have the deterrent effect we want, but even the resources we devote to enforcement won't be effective.
So we'll talk about it at the next meeting. Make sure it's on the agenda. Thank you. Can we get a motion on the consent agenda?
I'd like to move adoption of the consent agenda, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mrs. Louder? Yes. Mr. Lundberg?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. We have the second public comment period. Is there anyone that'd like to address the Township Committee? Seeing no one, will close that comment period. We have administrative reports. Mr. Manning?
Excuse me. Yes, I just wanted to report that you have some information that I think was sent by email, but you certainly got a copy of it. And it is answers to the questions that you had at the budget hearing. There's also an updated, based on our conversation, capital request form, so you should look that over. And that, of course, changes some of the numbers on the spreadsheet, which is the overview of the budget. So if you, just wanted to make sure that you know that, so.
Mr. Manning, do you want to put capital budget on the next meeting agenda, just to talk about it?
Yes. Okay.
As a discussion item, we'll put capital budget.
Right. And that was the, all that I had to report, unless there are questions.
Nothing? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Desiderio?
Mayor, I have one item. That was on me.
No.
I don't know who it was, but it wasn't me.
It was Mr. Manning.
At the last meeting, there was a resolution on awarding a contract for the hauling of leaves. Subsequent to that resolution, there was an objection filed by one of the other bidders. Based on my conversations with Mr. Manning and Mr. Bell, I believe there's merit to that challenge. We are investigating that, and we'll have a recommendation for you at the next meeting. In all probability, that recommendation will include withdrawing the resolution awarding to Mazda leaf collection, and awarding to a different bidder, but we're not prepared to do that, but we will report that to you at the next meeting. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Anything for Mr. Desiderio? Ms. Fritzen?
One item, Mayor, just to remind the Township Committee that at your next meeting, you have the group from Maplewood Stock come and make their presentation.
Requesting to be able to sell alcohol at the event. Okay. Thank you. Anything for Ms. Fritzen?
I have a question for Ms. Fritzen. What is the deadline for candidates to pick up and then return petitions?
I don't have the date yet. They haven't come out
April
with the
3rd.
date. April 3rd?
April 3rd.
Okay.
But-
I guess you would know, Mr. Mayor.
I was just going to say, why would he know?
4 p.m., April 3rd.
Okay. We didn't get that literature yet, but we are giving out petitions, have been, and anybody who's interested in running can certainly come to my office. And thank you, Mayor, April 3rd, 4 PM.
Okay. All right, elected officials, Mr. Lembrick.
Yes, a brief report. The Public Safety Committee will be meeting tomorrow night. And in addition to our usual monthly topics, we will be talking about a new initiative to implement a special needs ID program in town. This is something that Union Township started recently, and it's been working out really well. And this provides an opportunity for people living in the township with special needs, particularly children, but it can apply to adults as well, to get a special ID that can be used and can assist them in interacting with law enforcement and other township personnel. And it was something I was made aware of by a group of special needs parents here in town. And it seems like a great program, and I've already brought it to the chief's attention. I know he's been working with Union to gather information, and we'll be discussing that tomorrow. And we expect, hopefully, to be implementing that in the coming months, and we'll have more information, but wanted to make the public aware of that. And that, Mr. Mayor, is my report.
Thank you. Ms. Adams.
Well, other than doing an encore reading of my leaf blower report, I have no report, unless you really want me to.
You just like 3 words.
All in favor of her not doing that? Mrs. Larrier.
No report, Mayor.
Mr. McGee.
Couple of things, Mr. Mayor. First and foremost, I'd like to recognize and thank the Maplewood Fire Department, Chief Dinkelstad, and everyone for a wonderful job they did on Saturday morning with the unfortunate Avalon Bay fire. Number two, I'd like to mention again Black History Month in the Springfield Avenue events, and please go to springfieldavenue.com to get more information regarding the schedule. There's some really cool things that they're planning for the rest of the month. This Friday at 8 o'clock at the Woodland is the Rent Party. For those who don't know, it's a phenomenal program. It helps feed some of our underprivileged children here in Maplewood. And if you have $10 or so to spare, I'd say come out and hear some good music, some great tunes, hang out with some fellow Maplewoodians. And it's a wonderful event. Chris Dixon and people do a great job there. The Environmental Advisory Committee, we met a week or so ago, and we have a tentative date for the river cleanup, the annual river cleanup, that is on April 22nd. Also, the Green Team is continuing to look for residents to join in the Maplewood Solar Challenge, which is at maplewoodsolar.org. And then finally, my office hours will be this Saturday at 10:15 at Village Coffee. That is my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I have 5 items. First, I'd like to share with you that our resolution 3-17 on being equal treatment and welcoming community is, we shared it with Livingston, Madison, Highland Park, Roselle, and South Orange, all of which are considering adopting similar resolutions. So it's getting around, and I think that's good. And the Senate yesterday took some action condemning the ban, and also there's a bill that's been introduced to help any municipality that gets attacked because of their designation as a so-called sanctuary city. So we'll follow that. My office hours are Tuesday, the 14th of February.
Valentine's Day?
Yes, sir. Bring candy. And then we have planning board. I'll be with Ms. Adams at the planning board meeting.
Hey, don't start any rumors.
My office hours are at 7 p.m. On the next day, on the 15th at 2 p.m., I am going to the VA in East Orange. This is National Salute Week, and I'm going with Village President Sheena Collum and I, and anyone who might be interested is you're invited to join us. This is, they invite city officials, military officers, celebrities, athletes, to visit the veterans' patients in a show of support. Well, I'm not sure which one. I'm certainly not a military officer. I may be some of those other things at one time in my life. But, so anyway, we'll be visiting the patients there, 2 p.m. on Wednesday, if anyone would, the 15th, anyone's interested. We have been working with, meeting with the North Central Jersey Association of Realtors, and they have a Realtors Care Day in which if there's an individual who needs minor structural improvements, site cleanup, gutter repair, landscaping, painting, landscaping is without leaf blowers, by the way. Anyway, the realtors will come and work at someone's house for a day, and if we know of anyone who is in a house and either because of income or age is not able to keep up the house, then we can get this application to them, and they can be considered. The application deadline is June, so we have some time. We'll also be giving this to our code enforcement inspectors as they're going to see houses and meet people who may need some help, just volunteer help. They'd be able to apply. And lastly, I know there's has been interest in the location of the dumpsters for the restaurant at the Claris. I've been in discussion with the developers, and they have submitted a plan to put that dumpster now behind their building. It will not be in the Village Coffee lot. They will not need the easement that was approved by the Township Committee. This is going to be considered, it'll be on their property. This is going to be considered by the planning board. The downside of this is that this will only be for the restaurant at the Claris, and the dumpsters behind the Village Coffee will remain as they are. So there will be no consolidation of those garbage areas. So, well, you'd have to address it townwide or village-wide.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So anyway, that dumpster issue is off the table now. It will be behind the building, so. And that's it. If there's nothing else, we get a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All right, we'll see you on the 21st. Thank you.